Fucking hell, I got a hair or something. It's like a fucking pube on my microphone.
Did you put a pube on his microphone?
I mean, I did have it down my pants.
God damn it.
There's like a fucking pube on my microphone.
Hey, you are listening to the Recklessly Skeptical podcast. I said that a little weird, and this is Matt.
And my name is Josh.
And I'm Joe.
Today is Sunday, May 7th, 2017. And yeah, how are you guys doing?
I hope I'm doing good. Or if you're asking the audience, I'm sure they're all saying it anonymously. Great!
I'm sure.
I'm a little hungover.
Ooh.
Slightly. After you left, Matt, I went and got some more beer. And
Oh, you guys hung out last night and didn't invite me?
well, it was Marley's birthday party.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We went and got sushi after, and I drank really good beer and drank really good whiskey and ate sushi, and yeah.
Nice.
No sake? I mean, that seems like a traditional
yeah.
thing to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
No, I had Japanese whiskey and Japanese beer.
Ah, that makes sense. Still should have had some sake. Japanese wine.
Well, I did have a sake teeny.
Those words are just funny together.
They're really good. All right, let's get the show on the road. So, stolen thought. Whoa, Joe. Whoa. So, today's stolen thought is coming from Gandhi. Quote, "It is health that is real wealth." The GOP is making healthcare in the United States worse, not better. I thought that quote from Gandhi was right on point.
I think Gandhi, if he was a real person, he was probably pacifist. He probably sat around a lot, didn't eat. I'm just kidding. I know he's real.
Okay, I was like, what the hell is Joe talking about here?
I don't know. I'm hungover.
Okay.
All right. So
Gallup Daily.
Let's go to the Gallup Daily. So the numbers this week are that real unemployment is at 8.9%. Gallup Good Jobs is at 45%. Engaged at work is 34%. Economic confidence is down to 3. Consumer spending is at 111. And Trump's approval rating is at 40. It's back down to 40. It was up to like 42 or 43 at one point this week. So did the opposite of what it normally does, where it goes up during the weekend for no fucking reason.
Maybe his supporters are more willing to use the internet on the weekend.
Well, I'm sure that Trump supporters would say it's because we work during the week and on the weekends we're home. I'm sure that's what they say.
Yeah.
But this weekend it did the opposite. So
Yeah. Yep, this weekend it did the opposite. It's down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, otherwise still steady numbers for the most part, except for economic confidence, which is down to 3, which is actually pretty incredible. That means that we probably will see gold go up this week, so buy gold.
Buy gold, people.
All right, who's got the first story?
I think you should go, Josh.
All right. So this one is Donald Trump, titled "Religious Liberty Order Disappoints Some Conservatives." This is coming from The Hill. Some conservatives are frustrated by President Trump's new religious liberty order, saying it's dramatically scaled back from what they were expecting and doesn't enact the protections he promised during the campaign. At a Rose Garden ceremony Thursday, Trump declared the threat against faith community is over. It was like you never get here, folks, but you get here. Trump told dozens of faith leaders at the White House invited to the ceremony, which took place on National Prayer Day, which also happened to be May the 4th.
Yeah.
I wonder which one was more popular, National Prayer Day or May the 4th be with you. I couldn't tell. Ahead of the signing, religious conservatives hoped the order would resolve a number of issues they say conflict with their faith, including LGBT anti-discrimination protections and Obamacare regulations on contraception and employer-provided insurance. But after reviewing the text of the much anticipated order, prominent conservatives described it as useless at best and harmful at worst. The Heritage Foundation senior research fellow Ryan Adams called the order woefully inadequate in an op-ed for The Hill. The Christian nonprofit Alliance Defending Freedom released a statement describing the order as disappointingly vague and said it leaves Trump's campaign promises unfulfilled. Now, let's flip it to our side and see how we feel about what it did. So, essentially, and the article goes on and on and on. So I only read maybe a quarter of it out to you guys. But what it did is it actually was an attack on the Johnson Amendment. And we've talked about the Johnson Amendment before. The church leaders can now endorse a candidate and not have to deal with any potential tax issues. So essentially what this order does, because it's an executive order, it doesn't change the actual laws that are in place. President can't actually do that. What has to happen is a bill would have to be passed amending it. But what the president can do, because he's over the administrative forces, like over the tax administration, what he can do is make these things like the Johnson Amendment essentially useless, because what he does is say, we're not going to enforce this. He did leave out the thing that you talked about earlier this week, where he didn't attack LGBT protections, LGBTQ. And so what do you guys think about it in general, about him attacking the Johnson Amendment more than anything else and leaving the rest of it out?
Well, so first of all, I'm glad that he left out the parts where he was wanting to attack the LGBTQ community, like you said. So that's good. But this whole thing about letting, and the wording is vague in the executive order. So technically it's for all 501(c)(3)s, nonprofits. But the language used by Trump makes it appear that it's for religious groups only. He didn't say nonprofits. He said now Christians and all religions won't be silenced anymore. So it's for religions. It's not for all nonprofits. And it's bullshit. And a lot of religious people don't agree with it either. They think politics and religion should be separate.
My neighbor, who is Mormon, was very upset about this. He said the same thing. He's like, there needs to be separation. I don't want the government coming into my church and telling me how to do things, and I don't want to be telling the government how to do things because someone else's religious views might not line up with mine. And he's all, we just got to keep them separate.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's what I was saying when we talked about the Johnson Amendment. Like, most of the somewhat skeptical, and that's not even the right term, the religious people who are somewhat like normal are going to be against this, and they should be, like, because it is. I mean, you really don't want politics preached from the pupil, and you don't want politics dividing your flock or your chapel. But the people who are into making money from like the mega churches and shit like that, they're gonna love this. They're gonna love not being able to say, this is the preacher or this is the politician that God wants you to have. And motherfuckers like Ted Cruz and stuff are gonna love those types of endorsements where they can try and appeal to the evangelical Christian and get those endorsements and sound like the good guy.
Yeah.
And what's funny is this hurts people like Trump in the future, because Trump was not very popular with the evangelicals during the primaries.
Churches like the Flying Spaghetti Monster can come out and endorse a candidate.
Yeah, and actually, so I was thinking about something that would be fascinating. So this gives the Satanic Temple the right to endorse a candidate. And so now, as the Satanic Temple, do you say we endorse the Democrats, or do you say we endorse the Republicans?
Well,
Satan loves Republicans.
So the Satanic Temple technically isn't a 501(c)(3). They pay taxes.
For real?
Yes, that's what Shalise said when she was here and we were talking after the podcast. But that's still a good point. Now will they apply for the 501(c)(3), and of course they'll get it, and then will they start endorsing candidates? And like you said, Satan loves Republicans.
Oh, and they can put billboards up all over and be like, Satan loves this
Governor Herbert from Utah.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone would be like, oh no, I'm not voting for God. If Satan loves him, it would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, but you don't want to send mixed messages to the people who volunteer, because the other thing is you don't want to sound like you're against, or as the Satanic Temple, like you're against LGBTQ rights, because they are for LGBTQ rights, and they are for all these a lot of the same platform that we are, because they're atheists.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it was just an interesting thought that I was like considering. Yeah. But they could. They could say Church of Temple, or the Temple of Satan wants, or is for all these things, and this is who you should vote for democratically. But then also still plaster the Satan loves,
or Satan knows this guy's going to hell, or something like that.
Maybe.
But yet Satan endorses this great candidate over here.
Well, no. So have the Satanic Temple endorse one, and then have Satan loves whoever. As
Oh,
the
okay.
other.
Yeah.
All right, so this story is coming from Patheos.com. Hamameta, the friendly atheist.
Hamameta.
So, comedian Stephen Fry is being investigated for violating Ireland's blasphemy law after mocking God. In February of 2015, comedian Stephen Fry sat down for an interview with host Gay Byrne for RTE1's The Meaning of Life in Ireland. It produced one of the most memorable exchanges about religion in recent memory, and we're going to listen to it.
Go for it.
Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations, suppose it's all true, and you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in on
No,
that?
but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable. So, atheism is not just about not believing there's a God, but on the assumption that there is one. What kind of God is he? It's perfectly apparent that he is monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment you banish him, your life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion.
That sure is the longest answer to that question that I ever got in this entire series.
That guy's face.
Yeah, he was like, he kept like sitting back going, but his answer is so true. Like, even if God did exist, I feel like my moral system is better than God's moral system.
So, from the article, because this was state-run TV in Ireland, where a blasphemy law is still on the books, Fry is now being investigated over whether his comments violated the rules based on a complaint by a citizen. A couple of things about this investigation. First, there's a good chance nothing will come of it. As we speak, Stephen Colbert is being investigated by the FCC for saying of Donald Trump, quote, "The only thing your mouth is good for is being Vladimir Putin's cock holster."
And we should talk about that story. Actually, I do want to insert that story in. Sorry.
You're going to insert it, huh?
Yeah, insert it.
But as many people have noted, the FCC is obligated to launch an investigation anytime someone complains to them. It doesn't mean he's guilty of anything beyond satire or unintentional homophobia. Similarly. The Irish government will look into the Fry matter, but it doesn't mean they'll necessarily take action against him. Second, if they don't take action against him, what the hell is the point of the law? Just to scare off critics of the religion? If you have a law but refuse to enforce it, wouldn't it be better to get rid of it? The fact that we're even having this conversation tells you how messed up Ireland's blasphemy law is and why it needs to be repealed immediately. The group Atheist Ireland actually welcomed the blasphemy probe because it showcases a law that is silly, silencing, and dangerous. And in solidarity with Fry, they published a list of 25 other blasphemous quotations, the same list they published in 2010 when the blasphemy law went into effect, and for which they were never punished. Yeah, it barely went into effect.
I thought it was like a law that's been ever since they had television in Ireland.
Yeah.
They were like, we better make this law. I didn't realize it just barely went in effect 7 years ago. Holy shit.
If we are prosecuted, we will challenge the constitutionality of the blasphemy law. If we are not prosecuted, it will again highlight the absurdity of this law, which should be replaced immediately. We again call on the Irish government to honor its commitment to hold a referendum to remove the ban on blasphemy from our Constitution. It really would be glorious if Fry's brilliant quotation ended up defeating the blasphemy law that never should have been enacted in the first place.
Now, Matt, have you looked into this at all? Is it only Catholic and like a Christian God, or can they slam the Muslim God Allah? Have you checked into that?
I haven't looked into the actual wording of the law to see if it applies to all gods or just the Christian God. I'm not sure. That would be interesting to look into, though.
Yeah. You know what, guys? I got an interesting story.
Do you?
I do.
What's it about?
Well, it's coming from Science Alert. It's not the science story.
Oh.
But a physicist just explained why the Large Hadron Collider disproves the existence of ghosts. Because ghosts are scary.
Let me throw in a little side story.
Okay.
So my work, we just moved into a new building, and it's an old-ass building. And
Everyone's like, it's haunted.
one of the guys was like, come look at this like back room over here. Everybody says it's haunted. And I go walking over there. I don't believe in ghosts, obviously.
Yeah.
And we go walking in there, and I'm just thinking to myself, man, I'm not scared of a ghost being in there. I'm scared of a fucking bum being in there, and he's going to jump out and shank me and steal my wallet. Go ahead, though, Joe.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, someone was like, oh, it's haunted. Listen to this. Recent polls have found that 42% of Americans and 52% of people in the UK believe in ghosts. That's half the population. A huge percentage when you consider that that no one has ever come up with a irrefutable proof that they even exist. But we might have had proof that they don't exist all along. Because a British theoretical physicist, Brian Cox, recently pointed out there's no room in the standard model of physics for a substance or medium that can carry on our information after death and yet go undetected in the Large Hadron Collider. And so he kind of gets into the physics of it, which is pretty interesting. If we want some sort of pattern that carries information about our living cells to persist, then we must specify precisely what medium carries that pattern and how it interacts with the matter particles out of which our bodies are made of. Cox from the University of Manchester explained in a recent episode of BBC's The Infinite Monkey Cage. We must, in other words, invent an extension to the standard model of particle physics that has escaped detection at the Large Hadron Collider that's almost inconceivable at the energy scales typical of the particle interactions in our bodies. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, who also on the show, replied, if I understand what you just declared, you just asserted that CERN, the European Center for Nuclear Research, disproved the existence of ghosts. Yes, Cox said. It's become glaringly obvious that the standard model of physics is an incomplete theory with several gaping holes. The physicists have been trying to patch up for decades, but Cox says the existence of ghosts doesn't fall within the known unknowns of the standard model. Instead, he says it directly contradicts one of the most rigorously tested and fundamental laws of the universe we have, the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics, holy shit, states that the total entropy of isolated system always increases over time. Entropy is a measure of the randomness or disorder within a closed or isolated system, and the second law of thermodynamics states that as usable energy is lost, chaos increases. And without extra energy being put into a system, that progression towards disorder can never be reversed. In other words, energy is always lost to heat in any system, whether it's a washing machine or the universe, and you can never get back all the energy you put in. The principle can be used to explain why the arrow of time only ever marches forward, why there's a past, future, and present, and why you can't unscramble an egg because it would lower the universe's entropy. So how does that apply to ghosts? Because we can't touch and interact with them, ghosts can't be made of matter, but instead of energy. And if energy is necessarily lost within every system, particularly if they're doing anything that requires using more of it, such as moving, emitting light, or making spooky sounds, it would be impossible for them to maintain their existence for any significant period of time. The second nail in the coffin comes from the Large Hadron Collider, because while there are things about the universe we still can't find using the giant particle accelerator, what we can see very well is the way energy drives our cells' information. If we assume that the energy that sustains ghosts isn't an entirely new substance or medium, but carries on from when we are living, then this mysterious force controlling the particles that make up our cells would have been detected in the Large Hadron Collider by now. It's a little bit longer, but I think we can end it there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Ghosts aren't real, idiots.
Yeah, duh.
Okay,
Duh.
because I do want to talk about Colbert's rant in a minute, I'm going to try and keep this one super short. So Le Pen is just a gargantuan polling error behind Macron. So for those who don't know, Le Pen is the far-right French candidate. She has some racist tendencies to herself. Her father was a belligerent racist. She has a problem with immigration and immigrants, and she thinks they should go back to their country. Sounds a little familiar to somebody we know.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump was just a normal polling error behind Hillary Clinton on the eve of the 2016 presidential election. The far-right National Front candidate in France, Marine Le Pen, by contrast, is an enormous historic polling error behind the centrist and Marc candidate Emmanuel Macron. And Macron's kind of like the centrist, but he's anti-establishment in some senses, but he's not a liberal anti-establishment. He just is saying, well, I'm going to replace the government. So he's probably, and all of the other candidates have gotten behind him, including the liberals and the normative conservatives. Macron won the first round of the French presidential election in April, 24% to 21%. As expected, he has consolidated most of the support that went to candidates who did not make the runoff. Now he heads into the runoff on Sunday with a huge lead over Le Pen. In an average survey conducted over the last 2 weeks, Macron has earned 61% to Le Pen's 39%. To win, Le Pen needs the polls to be way off. That's possible. Clinton, for example, led Bernie Sanders in polls of Michigan Democratic primary by 21 percentage points before Sanders shockingly won there. But that upset was one of the biggest upsets in U.S. presidential primary history. Polling misses of that magnitude don't happen very often. French presidential election poll in the runoff have been fairly accurate over the past 50 years since 1969. An average poll over the final 2 weeks of the runoff campaign has never been off by 8.4 percentage points. So the thing in this story to take away is that while it's not likely that she's going to win, I mean, there's nobody who thought Donald Trump was going to win.
Yeah.
So there is reason to be concerned, especially since if she wins, the thing that the implication is that might end the European Union because France will most likely withdraw. So
Yeah, that's scary. And to make a point about the polling, everybody's like, see, the polls are off, it's bullshit. But I think what's actually going on, people were ashamed to say they liked Trump or they voted for Trump. So when they were polled, they would give a different answer, lie, say they voted for somebody else, whatever. But tons of people did like Trump. They just didn't want to admit it.
yeah, I mean, so that's part of it. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened in the polling that made it wrong. The other thing is that a lot of people said, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton, and they didn't fucking show up. So, I mean, there's people who are sabotaging the polling. There's people who think they're going to vote, and then they don't. And I mean, it all has to do with the way the polling is questioned. Is who are you going to vote for? It assumes that you're going to vote, and so.
And polling, I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's pretty close. It's they're reporting what people are saying, and you can't do much more than that.
And I'm sure there's quite a bit of assumption in there as well. Like, a lot of people said they were voting for Bernie, and so maybe they assumed, oh, these people are Democratic, or Democrats, so they're automatically going to vote for Hillary. And so
Yeah, and that
they may have just assumed and aligned them with the Democrats when a lot of them went and voted for Trump after Bernie was knocked out.
Well, and the last thing, I mean, with the polling is that there were a lot of news events right before the voting happened. So that might have helped suppress the vote. That might have also switched some people over, changed some people's minds.
All right, so this story is coming from the Washington Post. Seconds after praising his party's efforts to pass a new health care bill that estimates said would leave millions uninsured, President Trump praised Australia's government-funded universal health care system. "We have a failing health care. I shouldn't say this to our great gentleman and my friend from Australia, because you have better health care than we do," a tuxedo-clad Trump said at a meeting with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull in Manhattan on Thursday. Australia has a government-funded health care system called Medicare that exists alongside private insurance. This system is funded in part by taxes, including on the wealthy. The comments come hours after Republicans in the House narrowly approved legislation to replace the Affordable Care Act. The version of the American Health Care Act that the House approved has not been evaluated by the Congressional Budget Office, but it is estimated that an earlier version of the bill would raise premiums for older enrollees and would have 24 million fewer people insured. Trump, after advancing his first major legislative priority, hosted lawmakers in the Rose Garden at the White House to mark the occasion. Later speaking to reporters after meeting with Turnbull, Trump praised the bill. "It's a very good bill now. Premiums are going to come down substantially," Trump said. "Deductibles are going to come down. It's going to be a fantastic health care. Right now, Obamacare is failing." God, he talks like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Most U.S. conservatives oppose universal government-funded health care, but Trump has a long history of supporting universal health care coverage.
Maybe he thinks that's what he's giving the American people, and he's so fucking dense. So real Republicans are right there with him, like, "Oh, yeah, good job, Mr. Trump," patting him on the back, going, "What a jackass, you know. We're going to make so much money off this guy."
In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, "We must have universal health care." Trump's remarks on Thursday thrilled and amused at least one lawmaker, Senator Bernie Sanders, who ran for president as a Democrat during the 2016 campaign on a platform arguing for a universal public option, similar to the system in place in Australia. When Trump's comments were played during Sanders' appearance on MSNBC, the senator threw his head back with laughter. And his followers, they don't see this.
And a lot of them, like I said, a lot of them were voting for Bernie Sanders. As soon as Bernie Sanders was pushed away from the nomination by the DNC, a lot of these people switched over to Trump. Why? Do you know why a lot of them did? For universal health care.
Well, if they did, they're morons, because the whole time he said he was going to repeal and replace Obamacare. He also would say, everybody's going to be covered, but he's an idiot. Like, people are idiots if they believe him, because he says both sides of the coin on every topic.
Exactly. And I recognized that, and I think a lot of people recognized that. So a lot of people knew he was a joke. We're not going to vote for him. But granted, there are a lot of people out there who don't research as much as we do, who they see one little thing on Fox 13, they hear him going, "I'm universal health care," and they're like, "Oh, wow, okay." You know, and then that's as much input as they'll take in. There's a lot of dense people out there, Matt, and I feel bad for him, you know. Yeah, they voted for this guy, and this guy was a joke. He's a hack. And like you said, he talks like a fucking idiot. It's because he is an idiot. He probably has no idea what the fuck's going on. Like he said, "Oh, I thought this job was going to be easier than my other job. Fucking the leader of the free world, it's going to be so easy." You know, and his fucking hair's doing shit in the wind. He doesn't know. I think there's no fucking, you know, when you recognize yourself, like your being, he does not have a conscience, I don't think. He's just fucking completely, I don't get it, man. I'm dumbfounded by this jackass.
Yep.
Yeah, and honestly, yeah, I swear to God, he probably thinks he's giving people universal health care. "Oh, you guys have great health care. I just gave it to my people too, dude." It's like, no, you didn't. Did you even read it? You probably didn't read anything.
There were a few Republican congressmen that admitted they didn't read it, but they had their staff read it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a somewhat common practice because it's those bills can get fucking lengthy.
Oh yeah, they can be
And
thousands of pages.
Yeah.
I would
I'm
at
pretty-
least try to skim over it and then have my staffers be like, I would tell them, look, if you find this, or this, you let me know.
Well, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
Typically, they say, hey, break down the bill. I want it in 2 pages. I want the highlights, and then I want you to also look out for a certain number of things. Make sure that there's no coverage for people with pre-existing conditions and blah blah blah.
And how is rape a pre-existing condition?
I don't know. I haven't gotten an opportunity to fact check some of those claims because I've heard a lot of those claims, like pregnancy is a pre-existing condition, and I just haven't had a chance
To see if it's even real?
to see if that's really what's going on. Because if pregnancy is, then yeah, I guess that would include pregnancies from rape.
Yeah, I need to fact check more because I posted something about Pence saying something, and it turns out wasn't true. I snoped it later, and it was not true.
Oh,
And so I feel dumb. I was like, oh, man.
Did you take it down?
I haven't taken it down yet, which I will. I'll take it down. In fact, I'll do it right now.
it's your story though.
Is it my story?
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of the fucking Trump campaign, here we go. Administration, yeah. This one's coming from the Huffington Post. Congress gives Jeff Sessions $0 to go after medical marijuana laws. And, of course, I am an advocate for decriminalization and legalization, so I always have a marijuana story. I am not a huge active smoker, though. I probably give that persona, people are like, oh, I bet he smokes a lot. I actually don't. I don't really at all. Washington. Congress once again is blocking the Justice Department from spending any money that interferes with the state medical marijuana laws. In their new unveiled budget bill, lawmakers included a provision known as the Rohrabacher Amendment that allows to carry on with crafting their own medical marijuana policies without fear of federal intervention. The bill, which funds the government, though, through the end of September, is expected to pass this week. Here's the full text of the marijuana provision. None of the funds made available in this act to the Department of Justice may be used with respect to any of the states of Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas. It runs through all these states. Utah is also on there. Wyoming's on there. Wisconsin, Wyoming, or with respect to the District of Columbia, Guam, or Puerto Rico, to prevent any of them from implementing their own laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of medical marijuana. It's not usual to find this tucked into a budget bill. Lawmakers have been renewing the medical marijuana provision in every consecutive budget since it first passed in 2014. But what it shows is the Congress isn't interested in stepping up federal oversight of state pot laws under the Trump administration, even as U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions hints that he wants a crackdown. He issued an anonymous warning in February to states with legalized marijuana. States they can pass the laws they choose, Sessions said at a Justice Department press briefing. I would just say it does remain a violation of federal law to distribute marijuana throughout any place in the United States, whether a state legalizes it or not. He has also said that good people don't smoke marijuana and that pot is only slightly less awful than heroin. Last year, heroin killed nearly 13,000 people. Nobody has ever died from a marijuana overdose at all. Jeffrey Zucker, president of the Cannabis Business Strategy from Green Lion Partners, praised lawmakers for sticking with the status quo. Medical cannabis patients in the U.S. can rest easy knowing they don't have to return to the black market to acquire their medicine, Zucker said. Operators can relax a bit knowing their hard work isn't for naught and their employees' jobs are safe. The article's a little longer, but they seriously they did not approve any more money for the Justice Department to go after marijuana laws in certain states. Actually, in quite a bit of states. I think they said, God, it was most of our states. Even Utah was on there. They signed up for it. Hey, yeah, you can't come after us if we make a law towards it. So
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of the same idea as sanctuary cities,
Yeah.
for except for pot. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense. You don't want the federal government getting involved in your state for no fucking reason, because either your law enforcement is going to take care of it, or you're fine with your people using drugs. Like giving a maniac, like what the fuck his name is. What, remind me his name again?
Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, Jeff Sessions. Giving a maniac like Jeff Sessions power over your state is the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised at all to see states standing up and saying, "Hey, you know what? We're going to be for states' rights on this issue too. Like, fuck you for trying to get involved in how we're doing our drug enforcement, and fuck you for wanting to privatize the prison system. And this is not in the interest of our citizens. What we're doing is going to be in the interest of our citizens, which is either to not give a fuck about it or to enforce it selectively and not like try and throw people in prison for being just normal pot users."
Yeah, and there's that propaganda that Jeff Sessions implies that's around pot users and stuff, and it's only less dangerous than heroin. He's got this image of pot that's I don't know how he sees a pothead, someone running around with a gun shooting people, and he's fallen for the propaganda, and I don't know if he's doing it on purpose.
Yes.
Or you think he is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's no way he can believe half the shit that comes out of his mouth, right?
I mean, I don't know if he. I don't think it's sincere. I don't know for sure if it's sincere or not, but I know that he's selectively getting his facts.
Yeah.
And it's not really that he's getting his facts. He's definitely creating this image for himself. He wants to appear hard on drugs like every other fucking Republican in the past has. He's old school, so he thinks that appealing to drug enforcement is a good thing. And it's in this circumstance, it's not.
Yeah.
And same with heroin. Like, people are waking up to the fact that we cannot treat heroin like they're a bunch of fucking criminals, even though a lot of them do secondary crime.
Yeah.
But they need treatment. And with pot, like, who gives a fuck? Like, we drink beer and do worse things all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you said worse things. Beer is 10 times. It's so much more dangerous. People die around alcohol poisoning, whatever. DUIs, you know. People die around alcohol all the time. And it really doesn't happen with pot at all.
And there was a story that came out this week where 13 fraternity members were charged with criminal offenses for a hazing in which one of their fraternity brothers died, which is awful.
Yeah.
And it had to do around drinking. I've never heard of a fraternity that's gotten in trouble because of pot, and never has anybody in the history of mankind died from an overdose from marijuana.
Well, see, and there was even some, I think it was Holly, she read an article around cops and or police departments and stuff. Usually when they get a domestic call and they go to a home because of domestic violence, because of this, because of that, because of this, it's usually based around alcohol.
Yeah.
There's usually some sort of someone's drinking, something's going on. But they said when they go to domestic calls and domestic violence and stuff, there's usually never a couple of potheads sitting there beating each other up, you know, or a stoned husband beating on his wife. They say that never happens. It's usually alcohol related.
And another side of this is Jeff Sessions is against marijuana and he thinks it's dangerous, but at the same time, he thinks everybody should have a fucking gun. He's fine with everybody having a gun. He's not for any sort of background checks. And I'm not for banning guns at all, but I think common sense legislation that we could do background checks is pretty fucking normal and not a bad idea. You think a felon that beats his fucking wife, you know, anybody, you think people should just be able to go buy a gun off KSL? But marijuana, no. Oh, God, marijuana is horrible.
Well, what if a terrorist did make it into the U.S., Matt, and Jeff Sessions was like, no background check for you. Here, have a gun. You know, Jeff Sessions is an idiot. Who appointed Jeff Sessions?
Oh, yeah, Donald fucking Trump.
Because Donald Trump. He's really smart, right?
But I'm like...
no, wait, he's an idiot, too.
Your comment earlier about stoners beating each other up, that made me think of two people. No, Cheech is funnier. No, Chong.
Oh, let's just agree to disagree. That's how that would end.
You're killing my buzz. So I did want to talk about Stephen Colbert's rant. It was what got him in trouble, technically. And he's not really in trouble. He's being investigated by the FCC, which I'll explain why they can't really do shit about it in a minute. But they'll investigate it. But It's he went on this rant, and towards the end of the rant, because Donald Trump attacked, and we'll listen to it, attacked a fellow NBC host, Stephen Colbert decided to respond. So here it is.
But I gotta say, walking out in the middle of a sentence wasn't even the president's biggest insult to John Dickerson.
And I think actually I've been very consistent. It's very funny when the fake media goes out, which we call the mainstream media, which sometimes I must say is you. But when the
you
fake
mean me personally, or
your show, I love your show. I call it Deface the Nation.
Really? Donald Trump, John Dickerson is a fair-minded journalist and one of the most competent people who will ever walk into your office, and you treat him like that? Now, John Dickerson has way too much dignity to trade insults with the President of the United States to his face. But I, sir, am no John Dickerson. And when you, okay, all right? Let me introduce you to something we call the Tiffany way. When you insult one member of the CBS family, you insult us all. Bazinga. All right? Here we go. All right? Get the gloves off. Mr. Trump, your presidency, I love your presidency. I call it disgrace the nation. You're not the POTUS, you're the bloatus. You're the glutton with the button. You're a regular Gorge Washington. You're the presidents, but you're turning into a real pricktator. Sir, you attract more skinheads than free Rogaine. You have more people marching against you than cancer. You talk like a sign language gorilla who got hit in the head. In fact, the only thing your mouth is good for is being Vladimir Putin's holster. Your presidential library is going to be a kid's menu in a couple of Jugs magazine. The only thing smaller than your hands is your tax returns. And you can take that any way you want. We got a great show for you tonight.
So this sparked some backlash, and I'm reading from USA Today. Stephen Colbert's late show monologue sparks Fire Colbert backlash. Stephen Colbert's monologue on Monday, in which he dragged the president for his treatment of Face the Nation host John Dickerson, had some Twitter making allegations of homophobia. And so we just listened to what it was that he said. In the opening that has already amassed more than 2.5 million views on YouTube and sparked the hashtag #FireColbert, on Twitter, the late night show host apologetically took several shots at Trump because, as he explained, when you insult one of the members of the CBS family, and I said NBC earlier, CBS family, you insult us all, and then he kind of breaks it down. Now, the thing I wanted to cover was not really what Stephen Colbert said. He said cockholster. Woo. But was the Fire Colbert thing, and there's a lot of tweets in here that I wanted to get to and we should talk about. So, Carl, who has a "Don't Tread on Me" snake retweet, if you agree CBS should fire Colbert for his horrible joke about our president, not to mention is quite homophobic, hashtag MAGA. So, there's really 2 or 3 categories. So there's the people on the right who are saying that Colbert should be fired for insulting the president, and in parentheses, and he's also homophobic.
So those are crybabies. They're the special snowflakes because they can't take a little bit of criticism over their president.
The snowflakes on the right, yes. Yeah. The very, very much definitely snowflakes on the right.
And these are the same people that were defending Trump when he said grab her by the pussy, and he just does it without even asking. So he's literally talking about sexually assaulting someone, and they're defending him till the death. And then this guy makes a joke, even if he's dead serious. It's just the same as the shit Trump was saying, but worse because Trump was saying he actually assaults women.
Yes.
So these little snowflakes on the right should shut the fuck up.
And so here's another one. Fire Colbert, and this is, I'll explain the avatar in a second. Hashtag Fire Colbert, anti-American, homophobic, bigot. And his avatar is I Heart Trump.
And what Colbert said wasn't homophobic.
Okay. And
if you're a liberal
people,
snowflake that thinks that, you should shut the fuck up too.
And that's that's where I'm going to end.
Okay.
Is the people on the left. And then there were a bunch of centrists that were saying that were protecting him, including one of our favorites, and I don't mean that sarcastically, George Takei. Now, little right-wing mushrooms want to fire Colbert because he made fun of the Troll King. Wah! It'll go as well as boycott Hamilton. Now, so Takei, as everybody knows, he's gay as can be, and he would, if there was homophobia, if Stephen Colbert was homophobic, he would call him out on it. And there are people on the left that I'm sure are homophobic. And should be called out. But this is not an example of that. Like, being a cockholster, like me and Matt fucking jaw back and forth, and we say go fuck yourself all the time to each other and shit like that. Like, it's not homophobic to imply that someone should suck a dick or something like that. Even though I understand that, it just doesn't take into account, like, we've been gay bashed forever. And, like, there are things that are slurs against gay individuals or lesbians. Like faggot. Faggot is not a word that I would ever use in an argument or trying to attack somebody. Now, there are the people on the left, or supposedly on the left, that are fucking insane. Like, there was this tweet, it's not mentioned in the story, where he's like, this is why I'm skeptical of people on the left, or why I'm skeptical of, people on the left, or Democrats, and now I'm leaving the party. And it's like, fuck you. Like, you are... So we're talking about a party, the Republican Party, who is absolutely fine with legislating law that says you are not fucking equal. And because one person who is obviously left-leaning online or on a show said cock holster, you're going to get your panties all up in a twist and go and start fighting against your rights. Like, that's seriously the way that you think?
And it's not an insult because we think gay people are bad. That's not his point. The point is Trump is straight, so obviously he doesn't want to suck a dick. It's not an insult to gay people. And if some gay person, he could insult another gay person by saying, go eat a pussy. It's not, that doesn't mean you're straight phobic. It just means it's not what you're attracted to. That's why it's an insult, is because it's not what you like.
And he's just implying that him and Putin are more close than than he's letting on. And so, really, I honestly don't think it was that bad. But anyway, don't be a fucking snowflake. Jesus fucking Christ. Grow a pair of balls.
That's woman phobic.
That was fucking
sexist.
Grow a fucking pussy and go out there and fuck some shit up. No, I know a bunch of strong women that I wouldn't, that are very independent.
So, and here's the the reason the FCC can't do shit about it. So if it had gone unbleeped, then there might have been something that they could have done about it. But the obscenity test it has 3 prongs to it. The average person applying contemporary community standards would find that the subject, taken as a whole, appeals to prurient interests, depicts or describes, and that's arguable. Like the Supreme Court has never never put out a judgment that says exactly what that means. Depicts or describes in a patently offensive way that's something contemporary community standards, so it could be offensive to the average person. But here's the third prong, and here's why nothing's going to happen. The work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. You cannot say that calling the president's mouth nothing more useful than Vladimir Putin's cock holster non-political. So fuck yourself.
It's absolutely political. My next story is coming from The Guardian, and I wanted to talk about this one because here in the U.S., Trump just signed a religious liberty executive order, right? That gives that religion's political power in a sense. And then in Ireland, we talked about Stephen Fry being investigated for blasphemy, and this story is coming from Pakistan. Boy, 10 years old, killed in an attempted blasphemy lynching in Pakistan. So, a 10-year-old boy has been killed and 5 other people wounded after a mob attacked a police station in an attempt to lynch a Hindu man charged with blasphemy in southwest Pakistan. It was the 3rd major vigilante attack linked to accusations of insulting Islam in less than a month. As law enforcement and agencies struggled to deal with the surge in violence, Thursday's incident occurred in the town of Hub. They arrested a man, 34 years old, who is Hindu, and that's a religious minority there. He's a crockery shop owner and was detained on Tuesday for allegedly posting an incendiary image on social media. When news of his arrest was published in local newspapers on Thursday, a crowd of some 500 people, including traders, clerics, politicians, surrounded the town's police station to demand he be handed over. The police refused, and then the mob turned on them, beating up officers, local government officials, and they started firing guns. The 10-year-old boy died, and 5 others were wounded in the melee. So, yeah. So, and I'm not trying to make a slippery slope argument here, but here in the U.S., you know, we just gave religions a little more power. And in Ireland, they passed this blasphemy law in 2009. And, you know, they're not actually enforcing it, but whatever. And then here, somebody was arrested for blasphemy, and a fucking mob of 500 people go there to try and kill him. And because of that, they end up killing a little fucking kid.
That's why I love the U.S. Because of freedom of speech. But that's one reason why we need to stay away from, or we need to keep the separation of church and state. Because we don't want to start passing laws where you can't say something that you truly believe about a church or God or whatever the hell you want to call it, fairies and magic. And, you know, if you don't believe in that shit and you want to say you don't, we need to keep that. You know, freedom of speech.
Another point, I read it, but if you guys didn't hear it, the guy was a Hindu, which is the religious minority in the country.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yes, so he said something about Islam. So the religion that is in the majority feels attacked against the minority by one guy saying something, they can go and attack. It just shows you that when the majority is in power, they can do some fucked up shit.
Yeah, and here's my thoughts on everybody who thinks that their God needs the defense of by physical enforcement. You're wrong. Your God doesn't exist. And here's what I think about your blasphemy laws. Jesus was surrounded himself by 12 men, and Muhammad was a child fucker. So take that for blasphemy laws.
Yeah, for real. Well, this one is my science story.
Okay.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Why you don't even
Joe!
need me anymore?
Huh?
You don't even need me anymore.
Well, I was just trying to get you started.
Well, then I was started to take over, and then you kept on going. So.
Oh, I thought we all were just going to do it.
Bum, bum, ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-ba-da-bum.
Joe!
There we go.
Awesome. I'm proud of you guys. That was amazing.
All right, let's get this show on the road.
Okay, so this one is also coming from Science Alert. A wave of ultra-hot gas twice as big as the Milky Way has been found rippling through space. Pretty scary.
So cool.
So, scientists have found a huge wave of ultra-hot gas rippling through the nearby Perseus galaxy cluster. And when we say huge, we mean really freaking giant. We mean really huge. At around 200,000 light years across, twice the size of our Milky Way galaxy, researchers suspect it's the largest wave ever discovered in the known universe. And it's most likely been rolling through space for billions of years.
Don't you mean like 6,000 years?
Yeah, because Earth is only 6,000 years old. Who knows how old the universe is, Matt? Because Jesus doesn't say anything about the universe, right?
No,
In Genesis, they say like the heavens and the earth.
Oh yeah, that's right. So the universe is only 6,000 years old.
according to the Bible, yeah. Which is funny because light takes a light year to travel a year, and we can see things more than 6,000 light years away. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So your Bible is bullshit right off the bat.
No, God put all the light in between and set it up.
Oh, magic. Yeah, I can answer everything with magic too.
Yeah. Well, they said they made the earth. God made the earth look old. Why? Why would he do that?
Yeah, then if that's your argument, your God is deceptive, so fuck him.
Yeah. Fuck your God.
I've actually heard, and maybe it was you, Josh, that I talked with about it, that they actually believe that the earth was created by other shit and like mushed it all together, and that's
Well,
why there's
that's-
dinosaur bones, right?
So that's what some Mormons believe. Mormons don't believe in the 6,000-year-old Earth, but they believe that the Earth was made using pre-existing material, which would mean
Like other planets and okay.
Possibly, which doesn't make any sense because God's in charge of the entire universe, or this universe, this sphere of existence. Which, so why would he have to recycle anything? Like, he can just pop it into existence.
And that's why there's dinosaur bones,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, that's what some people believe. But really, you start questioning them and it just falls apart.
Obviously.
I love how you like rub your head.
Well, it's embarrassing. It is. It's fucking embarrassing that people believe some of this horse shit. Like, I was the phone call that I had a couple weeks ago that we talked about last week or a couple weeks ago. The guy who was discussing like things being 6,000 years old in Noah's Ark. Like, that's the most embarrassing thing you can believe. Is Noah's Ark, that the world was actually literally covered above Mount Everest in water for a year.
Magic.
And that all of these animals fit onto a boat. And I pointed out to him, I'm like, multiple times, like, they can't even keep that many animals in a zoo. And a zoo takes up, I mean, we're talking about some of these zoos being acres and acres and acres of land. And you think they fit on a fucking boat? I don't care how big the boat is really big. I don't care. It's teeny compared to an aircraft carrier, and they would never imagine trying to put 2 of every animal on an aircraft carrier.
And zoos have hundreds of workers, doctors, nurses, all these things. And how many people were on?
8? Yeah, 8 people.
His 3 sons, his 3 sons' wife, him and his wife.
And they were 800 years old and shit.
Yeah.
Walking around with canes, taking care of every animal, ever on a small boat, and even the dimensions of the boat.
And he brought up they could have been children animals. Like, fuck it matters. It doesn't fucking matter.
Oh, so they're puppies. They weren't big giant dogs or big giant elephants. They're
little
elephants.
Little mastodons fucking floating around on a boat above Mount Everest because that's fucking possible. God damn.
The whole fucking Noah story just drives me nuts. One, the boat, too. The boat. Like, wood boats aren't that big. I think the largest wood boat they've ever got was over 100 feet long, and then it splits and it bows in the middle.
Yeah, that's what happens is the current, because of the way the current flows, the middle of the boat spins and eventually falls apart.
Yeah, and they didn't have iron back then in that region, right? So they couldn't.
Even if they did, it was like for nails and shit. But I don't know. Like,
not long, huge.
Yeah, there was
100-foot iron rods.
The first metal boat was built in the 1700s or something like that. So there's just no way. Like, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing if you believe that.
But magic.
But magic.
Yeah, but magic. Oh, well, that's the explanation for anything,
You know what but magic is? When I eat too much chili.
Butt magic.
Yeah.
Okay, fuck.
Back to your story, Joe.
Okay.
I don't even know where the hell we were at.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Talking about science.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, because of how old the universe was.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the a wave of ultra hot gas. Butt magic.
Butt magic.
The wave is a type of Kelvin-Helmholtz wave, which occurs when 2 fluids traveling at different speeds move past each other.
This is straight up butt magic.
Yeah. All right. The most familiar example are the beautiful curling waves that crash over themselves at the beach as a result of wind blowing across the surface of the ocean. But Kelvin-Helmholtz waves have also been discovered pulsing through our atmosphere and have been spotted on other planets and surface of our own sun. Using data from NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory, researchers have now found evidence of the most massive example of one of these waves to date. The Perseus galaxy cluster is located in the Perseus constellation around 240 million light-years away and is around 11 million light-years across, made up of a number of galaxies surrounded by a vast cloud of scorching hot gas that's so hot it only glows in X-rays. It's pretty cool.
That is.
While studying X-ray images of the Perseus cluster, researchers saw something odd, a strange bay shape that kept appearing without any clear origin. At first, they thought it might have something to do with a black hole in the region, but using data from NASA's Chandra X observatory, combined with radio observations and computer simulations, scientists have now discovered that this bay shape is actually a giant wave. We think the bay feature we see in Perseus is part of a Kevin Helmholtz wave, perhaps the largest one yet identified, said lead researcher Stephen Walker from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. How does a wave that big form? Based on their computer simulations, the team suggests that billions of years ago, the galaxy cluster was settled with a cooler central region of gas reaching temperatures around 300 million degrees Celsius, surrounded by an area with gas 3 times hotter. But then a smaller galaxy cluster seems to have grazed past Perseus, sloshing those two regions together like cream stirring into coffee, creating an expanding spiral of cold gas. Perseus is one of the most massive nearby clusters and the brightest one in X-rays, so Chandra data provide us with unparalleled detail. The wave we've identified is associated with the flyby of a smaller cluster, which shows the merger activity that produced these giant structures is still ongoing. Getting more insight into how waves in galaxy clusters such as Perseus form and evolve doesn't just help us understand our universe. It also allows the researchers to get an idea of the strength of the cluster's magnetic field. If it was too weak, the wave would be much bigger than the one we see today. If it was too strong, it wouldn't form at all. So the research has been published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society.
Awesome.
Cool.
But Joe, you don't know that for sure. You don't know any of that.
Yeah,
Magic. 6,000 years old.
The work was actually researched and
peer reviewed,
and then
you can
the
go
research
look at it
has
yourself.
been published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, which is a peer reviewed journal,
and you can go look at it for yourself.
Cool.
Yeah, you can go see the research.
It's amazing to me, the universe. So how they said it's so hot, it's only seen in X-ray.
Yeah,
it's amazing to look at all the different light wavelengths that, like, Hubble will take pictures of, and they will overlap the images, or you can look at them individually to see different. I mean, it's different wavelengths, but it's a different perspective of that image, and it's amazing what we can do.
Well, what's crazy too is that whole hot cluster is twice as big as our galaxy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's a whole lot of hot space out there. You know what I mean? So you cannot survive there. Nobody could survive there. And that just, goes against the whole design just for us.
But it's for us to look at it and be in awe of God's work.
Yeah. I remember hearing that growing up. Oh, the stars are just entertainment God created just for us people.
God, you think he could have done better, like a sitcom or something?
Yeah.
Actually, I love looking at the cosmos, though, Josh.
Yes. No. And
I want to get a
awesome.
telescope, like huge one.
It is awesome, but as far as entertainment value goes, like that's not the point of the universe. Like,
yes, their argument is complete bullshit.
Yes,
but I do love looking at the stars.
Yes.
Thanks, God. I appreciate it.
Get a wink and a nod from Matt. All right. So my last story is about the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act, and it matters. So that's why I'm going to read it. House passes measure to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. This is coming from the New York Times, and I'm going to skip around stories, so I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs. The House on Thursday narrowly approved legislation to repeal and replace major parts of the Affordable Health Care Act, or Affordable Care Act. As Republicans recovered from their earlier failures and moved a step closer delivering on their promises to reshape American healthcare without mandated insurance coverage. The vote 217 to 213 held on President Trump's 105th day in office is a significant step to what could be a long legislative road. 20 Republicans bolted from their leadership to vote no. But the win keeps alive the party's dream of unwinding President Barack Obama's signature domestic achievement. And just to skip forward, because I think this is funny, Democrats who voted unanimously against the bill vowed to make Republicans pay a political price for pushing such unpopular legislation. As Republicans reached the threshold for the passage, Democrats serenaded them with "Na na na na, na 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 na, hey hey hey, goodbye." Yep. And so, in a different story, it's about the winners and losers of the healthcare coverage, or of the GOP's House passage of it. House Democrats and Democratic ad makers, the bill passed Thursday with a veritable smorgasbord of easy ads for Democrats to run against dozens of vulnerable House Republicans who voted for it. Paul Ryan is a winner. As the Post, Paul Kane writes, it was a shot in the arm for the House Speaker, who, in that it showed he can deliver votes on a tough bill. Let's see. Losers. Now, guess who is in the loser category? Poorer, older people, and people with pre-existing conditions. Whatever ultimately comes of this bill, if anything, the fact is that Republicans are pursuing something that throws the doubt of coverage of tens of millions of Americans and the affordability of health care for older and poorer people and those with pre-existing conditions. Those people got benefits from Obamacare, which is the law of the land, and the GOP may scale back those benefits to drive down health care costs overall. This is what you should expect. Like, I don't know how short-sighted people can be, because, I mean, most of us, 99% of us, have to deal with, like, these laws and have to deal with paying the cost of these laws. And this is for those, like, you might think, oh, well, I'm making $100,000 a year. I'm doing pretty good. And you are. And I'm young, so guess what? You will pay less in health coverage. Good job. But the health coverage for your parents and your siblings and your children, they're going to have to pay more in the end, too. Like, you're going to get old, and that's just a fact of life. And it's sad that we're the only country who doesn't care enough about its citizens to cover everybody with health care.
Hey, but Josh, people say when the government gets involved, the cost goes up, which is weird because when you look at every country that has socialized medicine, the cost is lower. So, you know, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is.
But socialism doesn't work, Matt. We see socialist countries fall apart all the time.
Look at Venezuela, man. You know what a lot of people need to learn? It's called nuance. You know, there's different levels of socialism. There's different ways you can implement socialized medicine. It's not just anarchy and socialism. You know, there's different levels. It's called nuance. You can tweak certain things and have socialized certain things at certain levels.
Yeah, like we have a socialized police force. We have a socialized firefighters. We socialize most of the roads in the country. And that seems to be working out dandy. But when it comes to medicine, we can't do it.
And then also, Matt, Venezuela, they went bankrupt, and it had nothing to do with their socialism. It was due to they paid most of their debts in oil. And that was something they were doing way before they attained their socialism. And it went to shit. It had nothing to do with the socialism. It was just how they were paying their debt that caused them to go bankrupt. Yeah. And then also with Brazil, I've been seeing a lot of Brazil. Brazil went to shit because of socialism, and I'm sorry, Brazil didn't go to shit because of socialism either. Socialism works when you don't have a totalitarian government. When you do, socialism will go to shit.
Yeah, and both countries have had more than their fair share of corruption in politics. And this has to do with money and politics again. It's not.
Yes, it doesn't have to do with socialism. It's money and politics, because we can look at countless examples of socialist countries that aren't corrupt, like those two countries, and it's running just fucking fine.
Yeah, look at the Scandinavians; they're doing just fine, and they have the highest quality of life. But yet here we are, sticking our thumbs up our asses, trying to blame the problem that is money and politics on socialism.
But and a lot of people are like, oh, well, under capitalism we don't have all these other problems, you know. And it's like, well, capitalism works with a certain amount of corruption. You know what I mean? Socialism, if it has corruption in it, it'll probably fail. And so we definitely have corruption, people. It's a whole long list of different variables that we could go on and on. Like you were saying earlier, Matt, there's varying degrees of socialism.
There's nuance. We need nuance because capitalism is good. Yeah. You need a little bit of capitalism, and having a little bit of socialism is good. It's a huge spectrum of what works. There's little pieces from everything. It's not just all socialism or just, there's...
Yeah.
It's nuance.
Yep, and just to kind of talk about the life of what's going to happen with this bill, it passed the House, so it goes to the Senate. Senate Republicans have already said that they're going to scrap the bill, maybe keep some of the things that they like, and they're going to totally rewrite it to try and get it to pass the Senate. So even though the House made this political gesture that they're going to try and repeal Obamacare, it's pretty much meaningless because there's no version of a Senate bill that's going to pass the House, and there's no version of the House bill that's going to pass the Senate. But it is scary to think that the Republican Party is to the point where they're like willing to pass almost anything. Just to fuck Obama, and that's really what it comes down to. It's more about fucking Obama's legacy than anything else.
And for the record, I'm not a big fan of Obamacare because insurance companies are involved and people are making a profit off of healthcare, and which is why we stand for universal healthcare.
It's
and
a
if you're a
weak-ass
poor
half
person,
measure.
yeah, and if you're a poor person, you can't afford health care, you get fined. That does not make sense to me. And then honestly, I don't think the government should pass any laws to where you have to purchase anything. Well, I'm passing this law to where you have to buy this.
I'm not sure if I'm against that though.
I'm against that. I disagree with Obamacare. I think
Okay.
it's better than what we had before.
But
I honestly think universal health care should be there.
There's car insurance. There's the concealed carry permits. Mm-hmm. There's fishing permits. There's all sorts of things that the government mandates that we buy if we want to do certain things.
Well, yeah, if we want to do certain things. But this is something you have to buy if you even want to be in this fucking country.
No,
you have to buy insurance
or
you get fined.
Or pay a penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's still a choice.
But like, if you want car insurance, if you want to drive, this is something you need to do. But this is, if you're born here and you're alive and you're a person, you have to buy this. No, that's fucked up. I'm sorry. Fuck Obama for making us do that. But I think universal health care is the way to go. I mean, pay my taxes towards helping everybody, yeah, but I feel like I don't need to be forced to buy something.
Well, and it's a way to get around the taxes, though. I mean, so you and me have an honest disagreement about this, Joe.
Yeah.
I think it's fine that the government, instead of taxing everybody that additional portion, that they make people purchase it or tax them through a fine. I mean, that's really how I see it.
It's pretty much the same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we all are for universal health care. Like, it should be a thing that we have access to as fucking living in an industrialized world nowadays.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode.
Did we want to talk about some of the comments that were left on your video?
We could read one.
Yeah, let's read a couple because I thought they were pretty good. Matt put out a video in the middle of the week, just specifically on the religious bill. There was a portion of it that was going to be left in, or that was possibly going to be put in, that was going to remove some LGBTQ protections. Yes. Yeah. And so he had some comments on that video, and I think they're worth reading.
All right, so Triple Backspace said, "You guys need to relax. It is all part of Trump's plan to drain the swamp, because everybody knows that the way to do that is to allow more money into politics."
I love it.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. This was a fun podcast. Remember, you can find this podcast on Stitcher, on Spreaker, and on Facebook.com/groups/The Evil Atheists, and atheists is always plural. You can email us at recklesslyskeptical@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Think passionately as you laugh.
That was weird.